The uprising of Ambiorix in Gaul was an important episode in the Gallic Wars, punctuated by the resistance of the Gauls against the Roman Empire. This video will tell us more about this revolt and the impact it had on Rome. In 54 BC, while Caesar was busy in Britannia, the situation in Gaul was not peaceful. The Gallic tribes, while nominally under Roman control, kept a strong cultural identity and a longing for independence. Tribal leaders had secret meetings, voicing their dissatisfaction with Roman rule and discussing plans to resist Romanization. The discontent was fueled by several issues, including the taxation imposed by the Romans, the exploitation of Gaul resources, and the perception that Rome was eroding Gaul culture and identity. The resentment prompted the formation of a conspiracy against Rome. Led by Ambiorix, chief of the Eburon tribe, the conspiracy sought to expel the Romans from Gaul and reinstate Gallic independence. The conspiracy was thoroughly planned and executed, profiting from Caesar's absence and the division of the Roman legions. The reason for this was that Julius Caesar made a strategic decision in the winter of 54 BC to divide his legions. He had 8 legions under his command, a total of around 40,000 men, and chose to partition them, dispatching each to winter camps in different parts of Gaul. Whilst this decision was sensible from a logistical perspective, it left the legions isolated and vulnerable to attack. 2 of these legions were placed under the command of Lucius Aurunculeius Cotta and Quintus Titurius Sabinus, 2 of Caesar's trusted legatees. Cotta and Sabinus were sent with their legions into the Belgian territory and established their winter camp near the turf of the Eburon tribe. Within a few days of the arrival of the Roman legions, the Gauls made a surprise attack. Led by Ambiorix, the Eburonese mounted an all-out invasion of the Roman camp. While the Romans managed to repel the initial attack, they were taken by surprise and suffered heavy casualties. After the assault, Ambiorix requested a meeting with Cotta and Sabinus. With a reputation for being friendly with the Romans, Ambiorix managed to convince the legatees to meet with him under the banner of a truce. But during the meeting, Ambiorix delivered a startling revelation. He told of the existence of a Gaul conspiracy against Rome, asserting that several tribes, dissatisfied with Roman rule, had banded together in an alliance to expel the Romans from Gaul. Ambiorix affirmed that, although he was bound by his honor to join the insurrection, he did not wish to harm the Romans, and that is why he promised Cotta and Sabinus safe passage through the territory of the Eburonese, allowing them to join another Roman legion. After Ambiorix's promise of safe passage, Sabinus and Cotta were in a difficult position. They had to decide whether to trust him and march to the aid of the nearest Roman legion, or to remain in their winter camp. After a heated debate, Sabinus, convinced by Ambiorix's words, convinced Cotta to move with his legions. The decision to march turned deadly. Ambiorix had laid a trap for the Romans. As the Roman legions crossed into the territory of the Eburones, they were cornered by Gaul warriors. The Romans were trapped in a valley and surrounded on all sides. The Gauls' numerical superiority and the Romans' tactical disadvantage left them in a desperate situation. The following battle was brutal. The Romans fought bravely, but were outnumbered by the Gauls. Knowing how desperate the situation was, Sabinus decided to surrender to Ambiorix. On the other hand, Cotta fought on until his death. The rout and death of Sabinus and Cotta was a turning point in Ambiorix's revolt. Another Roman legion, under the command of Quintus Tullius Cicero, was camped not far away. They were stunned when Ambiorix's army appeared and besieged their camp. Quintus and his men resisted bravely, but were outnumbered and surrounded. Despite the siege, he managed to send a message to Caesar, informing him of the situation. Upon receiving the message, Caesar gathered 2 legions and marched to Quintus's aid. Caesar's arrival changed the tide of the uprising. Despite being outnumbered, he succeeded in defeating Ambiorix's army in several battles. The defeat of Ambiorix was a significant blow to the Gaul resistance and heralded the end of the revolt. With the defeat of Ambiorix's army, Caesar managed to break the siege of Quintus's camp. Its liberation was a moment of great relief for Quintus and his men, who had bravely resisted the assault. The lifting of the siege was also a significant victory for Caesar, proving his strategic skill and leadership. Meanwhile, Ambiorix's mutiny had an impact on Caesar's prestige. While he had managed to suppress the revolt, Its occurrence was a blow to his reputation, showing that Gaul was far from being pacified, and that Gallic opposition to Roman rule was stronger than he had predicted. The leaders of the revolt had varying fortunes, but none of them were imprisoned for display at Julius Caesar's triumph in Rome. One of the leaders of the revolt, along with Ambiorix, called Catuvolcus, was already old and unable to flee. He cursed Ambiorix for starting the revolt and chose to die by drinking poison. In turn, Ambiorix and his men managed to flee across the Rhine, and from then on disappeared from historical records. But this rebellion was only the beginning, and soon Caesar would have to face another great test, this time against the leader of the Arverni tribe, Vercingetorix. But that is a subject for a future video. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel.